Good morning, fellow directors. I see someone has their microphone on. If you can rectify that. We have an echo.
I'm trying.
Oh, all good.
It's the new guy. I don't know how to turn it off. Just turn your phone on. Maybe I'll try just put my phone.
Still on the brownie section. You gotta keep them in control, Dave.
1, 2, 3. That is better. Thank you very much. Welcome, Director McKay. I'd like to start the meeting by acknowledging that we are doing our business on the unceded ancestral territory of the Quw'utsun, Malahat, Subasset, Halalt, Penelakut, Snaminas, Layaxan, Pakwachin, Dididot, and Pachidot nations, whose people have walked gently on these lands for thousands of years. Also acknowledge Director Acton, Director Martman, Director Abbott, and Director McClinton online. If you do have a question during the process, could you please raise your virtual hand so we can have someone at least acknowledge to me that you are looking to contribute. With that, Ms. Boyd, I will turn to you.
Thank you, Chair. We have an approval of the agenda. I've just been advised that we would like to start with R2 before R1. So if the agenda could be approved as amended.
I have a mover and a seconder. All in favor? So R2 is before R1 in the agenda. That motion carries. Ms. Boyd.
Thank you, Chair. We move to the adoption of the minutes, that the minutes of the Committee of the Whole meeting of October 30th, 2024 be adopted.
Mover on those. Seconder, I'm going to turn online. Director Martman, anything that we need to rectify? Thank you. That motion carries. Ms. Boyd.
Thank you, Chair. We move to public input period.
Do we see anyone in the public that wants to have input this morning? I believe they're all delegations.
Thank you, Chair. We'll move to delegations. D1, Bob Day, Board Chair and Treasurer, and Daryl Matkalak, Executive Director, Cowichan Housing Association, Cowichan Housing Society Work Plan. This is for information.
Good morning. Just so we're aware, 10 minutes for the delegation. Should you need more, we can extend with approval of the board. And with that, welcome.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and thank you very much, fellow directors, and staff in the room today. It's great to be here again to have our Executive Director present the work plan for the upcoming year. You know, I don't have much to say on that report, but just when I think of affordable housing, and that is our overarching mandate for the Cowichan Housing Association, I think of all the people that I work with in my day-to-day work that, you know, barely make $1,450 a month to afford their housing, and then I get the rental availability lists, and it's $800 a month for a room in a shared house now, and you can just imagine the numbers for anything more than that out there in the housing. So market housing is looking after itself. Affordable housing isn't doing such a great job catching up to that. So that's what we're here to do. We're excited about the project, one project we have that we can tell you about today, and the others that are coming along the pipe. And I just encourage you all to advocate for any type of affordable housing in your communities, and reach out to us or the people who you know that can make that happen, because it's definitely out of balance right now and we need to move that along. And there's one particular case that I was a witness to a few weeks back where a single parent with 5 children was trying to find a home. They were living on social assistance alone and the child tax credit. And the landlord actually raised the rent because there was 5 children moving into the home. So how does that work? How is that fair? How is that right? And that's just one instance of many that I hear about in my day-to-day work, because I work in that field where rents are, you know, moved around because people don't want those folks. So along with that also comes social programs to support that type of housing. So because the social programs out there right now mostly support the privileged, and so we need to think about that in your work as well, I think, because that's an important part of happy communities. So with that, I'm going to give you Daryl Matkalak, our Executive Director, to tell you all about his exciting work plan. Thank you.
Welcome, Daryl.
Thank you. Now it is, okay. Good morning, Mr. Chair and directors, and thank you for having us here today. As a follow-up to the October 9th Committee of the Whole closed session, where I presented some of the land and real estate projects Cowichan Housing is working on, I will now provide a summary of some of the CHA activities from 2023 to 2024. The agenda packet you have includes a hard copy of the 2024 CHA work plan, so I'm just going to summarize some items from that. And when I discuss a certain program, I'm going to deal with 2023 and 2024 at the same time. In 2023, CHA provided funds for one project through the Regional Housing Trust Fund, being $300,000 to the Duncan Housing Society to pay for pre-development costs for the Duncan Manor affordable housing project that's going to be constructed at 486 Jubilee Street. In 2023, we also provided $20,000 in emergency funding for tenants of the Magdalena apartment that faced structural issues, resulting in some tenant evictions. The CHA team also assisted in relocating several evicted tenants to new permanent housing from that apartment. In 2023, we also hosted a housing forum at the Cowichan Community Center to address the housing crisis and work towards affordable housing solutions in the Cowichan Valley. This housing forum was funded by the Housing Trust Fund, Van City Community Foundation, and Fortis BC. In 2023-2024, CHA also worked on various programs that were funded outside of the CVRD Regional Housing Service, so I'll highlight on some of those now. In 2023, CHA applied and received funding from the Union of BC Municipalities, or UBCM, I think as everybody here knows them, for the continued operation of the Village Project on Trunk Road into early 2024. The amount of this funding was just over $1.2 million. As of March 31, 2024, CHA is no longer involved with the operation or funding of the Village Project, but we continue to support the renewal of its temporary use permit with the City of Duncan to ensure its continued operation through to the end of 2026. In 2023-24, CHA provided the essential flow-through of funds applied for and approved from the UBCM for A Place to Be that provides a safe place for unhoused individuals in the Duncan North Cowichan region during daytime hours. This service is established in the back of the Cowichan Valley Basket Society facility, where individuals have access to washrooms, warming and cooling stations, as well as connections to outreach teams, local service providers, and healthcare professionals. Access to additional resources such as clothing and toiletries are also available. On October 31, 2024, funding for A Place to Be expired. In late October, CHA and the operator of A Place to Be collaborated such that CHA will provide funds, together with some funds from the operator, to secure its operations through to the end of March 2025. CHA will be applying for reimbursement from the UBCM, and we are confident this will be provided. As the continued operation of A Place to Be is critical for our community, CHA is currently working with the operator in seeking new funding for the program. CHA successfully operated the Housing Loss Prevention Program that in late 2023 resulted in CHA becoming the lead for the Cowichan Valley Rent Bank program. These programs were renewed with funding provided up to March 2025. Funding for these programs was provided by Cowichan Designated and Duncan Indigenous Streams of Reaching Home through the United Way and the BC government through Van City. We are confident funding will be awarded for the continued operation of these programs through 2025 and 2026. CHA is also the program lead for the Coalition to Address Homelessness and Affordable Housing, with funding provided by the UBCM. Funding for this program expires in March 2025. However, we are hopeful the coalition funding will be renewed through to 2026. In 2023-24, CHA worked with Economic Development Cowichan, assisting in the development and implementation of a workforce housing survey that led to the foundation for the workforce housing strategy that was recently presented to the CVRD by City Spaces, the consultant engaged to prepare the workforce housing strategy. We intend to continue providing support as requested for the workforce housing strategy as it prepares to undertake a feasibility study. In early 2023, CHA applied for and was awarded over $170,000 to continue operating as the Coordinated Access Lead Agency, managing the development and implementation of a coordinated access system. In late 2023 into early 2024, when I came on board, we began examining all existing programs to establish an appropriate fit with our mandate. In the last few years, during and resulting from the pandemic, CHA accepted many diverse roles. At that time, these were important for CHA to fill in the community. However, many were service-oriented, distracting CHA away from its core mandate of facilitating and developing affordable housing in the Cowichan Valley. With the pandemic in the distant past, CHA is refocusing to its core mandate and no longer participating in programs that do not align. Coordinated access does not align with our mandate. In 2023, CHA and Cowichan tribes applied and were awarded funding through Reaching Home, Canada's homelessness strategy, to purchase land in Duncan to aid in the development of affordable housing. We analyzed several potential properties before deciding on the ideal land parcel to purchase. Prior to purchasing the land, Cowichan tribes and CHA agreed that CHA would be the sole owner and developer, and Cowichan tribes would have a collaborative role in the operation of the final development. In February 2024, CHA purchased the land as sole owner. The funds utilized for the purchase were awarded as a grant and do not have to be repaid. In 2023, CHA funding sources were from UBCM, 31%, CVRD, 30%, Reaching Home, 28%, Rent Bank, BC Rent Bank, 11%. These are set out on a pie chart on page 6 of your hard copy.
Before you continue, we've reached 10 minutes. Looking for an extension. Moved and seconded. All in favor? Opposed, if any? Sorry to interrupt, but
That's
please.
fine, thank you. Bob went too long. I understand that November is budget month, as I was asked to submit the CHA 2024 and 2025 budgets for the CHA CVRD Regional Housing Service operational and administration budget. These are not included in your hard copies, nor are they on the agenda today. But I take this opportunity to clarify that when you do your review of CHA 24-2025's administration budgets, you will notice they are higher than the $250,000 provided by the CVRD. I learned that in previous years, CHA budgets were slightly adjusted to arrive at exactly the $250,000 provided by the CVRD. However, these were not a true reflection of CHA's actual administration costs. I operate in a fully transparent manner, so I have provided the true administration costs to operate CHA. CHA has and will continue to rely on third-party funding to pay for the amounts not covered by the CVRD contribution. For clarity, we are not seeking an increase from the CVRD to the $250,000 provided. We will cover the shortfall from our operating programs. The CHA budget reflects our true administration costs, of which we are thankful the CVRD contributes $250,000. That's all I have to present today. Thank you for listening, and I welcome any questions you have from your packet or what I said.
Thank you very much. And just looking around to the directors, if we can just focus on clarification questions for the delegation, please, as was noted in the governance workshop, then we can go forward and move in a direction. I have Director Justice, Director Wilson, and Director Douglas.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. For clarification, as you noted, the CHA has determined that the coordinated access is not relevant to the core mandate of affordable housing development. So what will happen with coordinated access?
I'm going to bring up and introduce Morgan Saddington. She's our administration and financial manager and has had much more involvement in this. I came in at the end of the procedure, so I'd like to turn the mic over to her to answer this question. Thank you.
Hi, thank you. To the best of my knowledge, coordinated access, it's going back out to a call to the community. So we're currently looking, it's with the United Way right now, who funds that program. So we're looking to find another organization in the community to take on that project. Does that answer your question?
Yes, I think so. Thank you.
Follow-up?
Mr. Chair, I don't have a follow-up, but I do have another question I can wait for.
Okay, I will put you back on the bottom of the list. I'll turn to Director Wilson.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Darrell, thank you, Bob, and everybody else that's here from CHA. I've just been reading an article from, and I'm sure Mayor Douglas knows about this one, the Affordable Province kicking in some funding up in North Cowichan. Is that the same source that you have been talking about getting funding from, or is that somewhere else? This one says 34 three-bedroom family-oriented townhouse units.
No, I'm not involved in that, no.
No, okay.
Okay.
Okay, that's purely a thing. But thank you very much for your presentation.
Okay.
Thank you. Director Douglas, please.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, through you to Mr. McCulloch, in terms of your plans for the coming year, the province has indicated they are going to be having another call for proposals for the community housing fund. And the plan had been for this fall, but the election threw a bit of a wrench into that. Do you anticipate you're going to be working with the local groups to get in a submission for that?
Yes, we're going to be applying for, through the chair to the director. We're going to be applying for any grants that are available for real estate development and any other programs. We're going to continue to seek programs that will fit our mandate, provided we can get funding for them. So we will be going for those, yes.
The province also announced last year the BC Builds program, and I understand you and Mr. Day have been looking into some potential opportunities through that funding stream.
Yes, we are, and I am familiar with the BC Builds, and that would be more in the closed session, but we will be looking at that. And I believe in the last session you mentioned maybe we would collaborate on something.
Yeah, that'd be great.
I would like to do that.
Great, thank you.
Okay.
Great, thank you. Looking online, I don't see any hands there. And around the table, I will return to Director Justice.
Thank you. I'm fine.
And with that, I would like to thank you and Mr. Day for attending today and giving us an update on what you are up to.
Okay, now,
Appreciate
can I just say one last thing before I leave?
Absolutely.
Okay. So, since I started, I have been providing some real estate development leasing advice to.
Sorry, I cut you off. You'll have to,
All right,
my
sorry.
bad.
All right, since I started, I've been providing some real estate development and leasing advice to other program operators in the Cowichan Valley. And I just want to convey to all the directors here, I am very approachable and willing to provide my opinion or advice if requested on any real estate related activities you may have or may be interested in pursuing. This, of course, will be provided pro bono through my role at CHA if anyone wants to take it up. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Round of applause. And kudos to the directors for being focused. I appreciate that. Thank you, Director Ishdash. Ms. Boyd, shall we move on?
Yes, thanks, Chair. D2, Kenzie Knight, Tourism Development Specialist, and Bob Day, President, Tourism Cowichan, regarding the 2025 Municipal Regional District Tax Tactical Plan.
I'm not quite sure how Mr. Day got two delegation requests and approval at the same meeting, Ms. Boyd, but welcome again, Mr. Day.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, as I sat there listening to Daryl, I was reflecting back on fellow directors. I will not be running for political office again. Just, I think that's probably part of my past that got me to these two situations where our boards at both entities probably could benefit from some of the good lessons learned around a CVRD and a municipal board table. So I'm very excited to be part of those two organizations and which I think are change makers in the Cowichan Valley. Speaking of change makers, 4VI is now transitioned into a social enterprise, and I'm excited to hear Kenzie present to you folks on what that's going to look like. And the part that I'm most excited about is we're going to talk more about satisfying our own residents in our own communities with the tourism attractions and events that are promoted through Tourism Cowichan, because it's just truly noted that when people in your community are happy, others will want to come and see it. So, and the other part of that I'm really excited about too is working closer with First Nations. That's something we've struggled with, that we want to find a way to create better partnerships and better working relationships with First Nations in the tourism activities and promotions. So thank you very much, and with that, I'll give the floor to Kenzie.
Welcome.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and hello, directors. Thank you for having me today. I'll be presenting on the one-year MRDT tactical plan for 2025, which was included in the agenda package alongside the one-year budget. Just giving a high-level overview on what priorities and objectives we've identified for next year. And before I jump in, I just wanted to provide a brief overview about Tourism Cowichan Society and our organization for those who may not be as familiar. So we are composed of a board of directors, which provides strong leadership to our Tourism Cowichan. We have 10 directors representing various sectors from the Cowichan's tourism industry. And as Bob mentioned, 4VI is contracted by Tourism Cowichan to deliver destination marketing and management services as directed by the board. And we are interested in taking a closer kind of priority towards the destination development side of things. I think in the past, Tourism Cowichan has been heavily marketing focused, but we're increasing capacity at 4VI and have hired a new director of tourism development. So we'll be able to really add capacity to the destination development side of the work that we do. And as Bob mentioned, taking a resident first approach as opposed to a visitor first. We also have a stakeholder model that invites tourism businesses to participate in marketing programs and industry growth opportunities at no cost. Currently, we represent over 400 registered stakeholders operating in the Cowichan region. And we engage with our stakeholders on an ongoing basis through one-on-one meetings and industry workshops to ensure that the programs are in the best interests of the businesses that we serve. An annual stakeholder survey is also deployed to collect feedback on programs to increase the effectiveness and to help inform the development of this annual tactical plan. So the overarching goals for the 2025 plan are to increase revenue from visitation, to manage growth and benefit through seasonal and geographic dispersion, and to increase stakeholder collaboration and export readiness. As we move into 2025, our brand strategy will continue to focus on our core values of warmth, authenticity, originality, and unexpectedness, building on our brand positioning of warm hearts, open arms, and simple pleasures. And our goals and objectives focus on increasing visitor revenue while also increasing the competitiveness of Cowichan as a destination and improving the visitor experience, while also ensuring that tourism makes positive contributions to the well-being of Cowichan communities. Tourism Cowichan's target markets are primarily British Columbia, Alberta, and Washington. The primary demographic is couples aged 45 and older with a secondary market of families with children and solo travelers or young couples aged 25 to 40. And then the psychographic targets that we focus on include authentic experiencers and cultural explorers. Both of these kind of seek immersive cultural heritage and local experiences and are primarily interested in activities like wine and culinary tourism, agritourism, and arts and culture. The secondary target market is free spirits, seeking high energy events and outdoor adventures such as hiking, biking, marine activities, and golf. An overview of our key strategies for 2025. The first is to enhance collaboration. We really have a strong interest in fostering better partnerships with our tourism businesses, engaging with First Nations and municipal partners on a more regular basis to understand tourism development priorities and ensure that tourism benefits are shared. We also want to encourage sustainable travel and responsible visitor education. This is integrated across all marketing campaigns by encouraging visitors to minimize their environmental impacts while traveling in the region and ensuring that Cowichan's natural and cultural spaces are respected so that tourism does not cause harm. We will promote unique and diverse accommodation options to showcase accommodation for different budget levels, as this is a concern that we hear from our visitors that there's a lack of accommodation in the region, so want to bring awareness to the variety of accommodation that does exist, and promote off-season packages and itineraries that link accommodations with experiences to lengthen that stay. We want to manage strategic growth through both seasonal and geographic dispersion to the off-peak seasons and to lesser visited communities that have capacity to welcome visitors, while also promoting experiences that reduce pressures on popular areas and extend the benefits year-round. We will support community organizations and events through the continuation of our events grant program, and this will really seek to draw overnight visitation into the off-peak season by providing marketing support to key events. And we will facilitate industry development by organizing workshops and tourism industry networking events to increase participation in our marketing programs and foster collaboration. And then lastly is to improve market research to really understand resident and visitor sentiment towards tourism development on a regular basis to ensure that Tourism Cowichan remains responsive to that. An overview of our key marketing priorities for next year. The first group is kind of our always-on tactics. So this includes things like our consumer website, Google search ads, and organic social media content, which drives ongoing brand awareness and directs visitors to trip information. We'll also continue to fill asset gaps with brand-aligned images, video, and written content that represents the diversity of Cowichan communities, while also supporting storytelling for seasonal campaigns. We will refresh the Cowichan Visitor Guide for 2025 with updated content and distribute the new guide throughout the province and on BC ferries to support trip planning and leads to local businesses. For our marketing campaigns, we will utilize targeted multi-channel campaigns focused on the spring and fall months that increase brand awareness and drive bookings to the region. Key tactics for these campaigns include traditional advertising, so print, television, radio, and out of home, as well as digital advertising, email marketing, display, paid social media, and paid search. We will also continue to invest in sector consortiums that target specific activity-based visitor groups, things like the BC Ale Trail, BC Bird Trail, Mountain Biking BC, Gulf Vancouver Island, the Ahoy BC, and BC Farmers Markets. And new for 2025 will be Fishing BC and the Spirit Loop. For consumer shows, we plan to exhibit at the 2025 Vancouver Outdoor Adventure and Travel Show to really increase awareness amongst the Vancouver market and drive awareness of Cowichan as a destination for outdoor adventure. This year, we do plan to offer some paid sponsorship opportunities for stakeholders to come alongside us at the event, and we'll also be exploring opportunities to attend culinary-focused consumer shows as well. And then lastly, we'll support travel trade and travel media relations with Destination British Columbia and for TVI, hosting press visits, attending trade shows, and providing in-kind support to generate earned media coverage for the Cowichan region. On the destination development side of things, a key priority is industry development and training to support the professional development of our stakeholders and tourism businesses through workshops, training, and networking events. And the Events and Experiences Fund will continue for the third year into 2025 to provide grant funding to event organizers to host out-of-region marketing activities, really with the goal of fostering new experiences that attract visitors to the region. The 2024 fund of $100,000 was fully subscribed to support 20 events in the region. This past month, we initiated the first stages of a cycling tourism strategy. We have set aside some budget for 2025 to implement the key findings from this strategy, which will likely be next fall. And action steps will be collaborated in coordination with municipalities to support growth of this sector. And for the enhancement of visitor services, we will continue to provide funding to Cowichan's 4 visitor centers through an application-based process. The intent is really to support visitor centers in improving and enhancing their experiences through kind of improvements and innovations to existing visitor services. And then lastly, we set aside some budget to start work on the MRDT 5-year application renewal. This is in preparation for the end of the 5-year term in July 2027. And the goal here is to really understand kind of collective priorities towards the use of the MRDT funds and support for renewing that application in 2027. And we're also interested in exploring support for community interest in increasing the tax collection rate from 2% to 3%. There is also interest in looking at opportunity for Tourism Cowichan Society to potentially become the designated recipient of the funds down the road. As our organization is growing and evolving and is taking on more capacity, we're really interested in taking a more active role and taking on more responsibility in this area, and also create efficiencies for a bit of a streamlined process. With that said, we would continue to have an agreement in place with the CVRD so that we can have a balanced and collaborative approach to ensure that MRDT funds are being shared between tourism priorities and also community needs, such as supporting affordable housing. Thank you.
2 seconds to spare. That is time management. So I will turn to Director Ishdash. I'm looking for hands while I'm browsing the room. Director Morrison after that.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Kenzie and Bob, for your presentation. I've got a list of questions, and I'll only do one to allow it go around the group first. I'm going to touch on the one that I was actually asked to speak about. The changes to the event funding. As you said, the 100,000 last year was fully subscribed and was well utilized, and I'm sure the metrics showed how successful it is. This year, it's being cut down to 50,000. I see, wasn't it? It said 50,000 for outside marketing events, or is it staying?
It's still 100,000.
Okay, so it's still 100. I thought it was shifted to 50. But with that, as you know, I'm sure you probably already received a letter from the Chemainus BIA on that they are no longer possible to receive the funding for the Cowichan Craft Beer and Food Festival. That was sold out in a week, and it was 1,000 people, and there won't be funding now to bring those people that were primarily from the Nanaimo and Victoria to the Cowichan region this year. So can you speak more to why the board felt it isn't? I understand the hotel capacity, but events that sell out that fast that now aren't going to have those funds that were, and of course with the way the prescription of that was, those funds could only be used to advertise to areas outside the region. So because that advertising was so successful, the Cowichan Valley, because it's, as it said, it's not a Chemainus event, it's labeled as the Cowichan event, won't have those funds to do the marketing next year because they're ineligible. So I don't know if that's more of a, not so much of a question for you, but possibly for the chair, as the board made that decision, I imagine, and or if it was staff led. I offer the question to you then, on how you feel the summer. Again, I understand capacity issues during our summer and trying to build more experientials outside of, I get shoulder season, but really impacting our biggest events is, I don't know, are we doing ourselves a disservice?
Yeah, thank you. It's a really good question. I can speak to it a little bit, and if Bob wants to add anything, he can jump in. But the goal of the grant program is really to drive off-season visitation. That relates back to our mandate and also the mandate that we kind of follow through Destination British Columbia. So we were finding that most of the events that we were funding, or a good chunk of them, were happening in the summer months. And one of the factors is hotel capacity. There's not always additional hotel capacity to welcome visitors during the summer months, so it doesn't make sense to market these events if there's nowhere for folks to stay within the region. So it's really to increase capacity in the shoulder seasons where there is additional capacity to welcome guests. The other factor is we did refine the grant program a little bit this year to really focus on new events or events that are offering enhancements. So the goal of the funding program isn't to, support more well-established, mature events that have a consistent audience base and have proven themselves to be successful. The program is really to support events and experiences that are in an infancy stage so that they can grow and establish themselves to be available long-term. So the grant isn't meant to be a funding source that events become reliant on. It's really meant to foster new events in those early years. So does that answer your question? No.
I will return to you, Director Ishdash. Director Morrison next, please. I will return to you, Director Ishdash, after Director Morrison.
Thank you, Chair. Good reports, presentation. I'm focused on, I'd really like to talk about whether or not you think your OAP, short-term rental revenue is perhaps in for a little decrease, but I'm going to go instead to camping. And specifically to the west of the region, in that other than what Lake Town Ranch has developed for camping for their specific events, I don't believe there's been a new camping site created in decades. And I live in a community where on a long weekend, starting on Thursday evening, we start to see the RVs and the campers and the tourists driving around the lake looking for places to camp. So I'm looking at page 8 of this report, and it's promote unique and diverse accommodation options. And it seems like there's a target to develop and enhance every segment other than the most affordable option, and that's campsites. Is there work that's going to be done? Is there going to be a focus on that? I realize that it requires a fair bit of land, and it's not the most profitable form of accommodation available, but you say it everywhere in your report, we've got an accommodation crunch. What are your thoughts?
I would agree. I think camping is a critical piece of accommodation that we will continue to kind of bring awareness to, that those opportunities do exist in Cowichan. I would definitely be interested in look at how we can attract additional campground investment into the region, because as you know, the high cost of travel and economic uncertainty does create a challenge for encouraging visitors to come to the region, especially with BC ferries and higher costs of plane travel nowadays. Visitor spending will be decreasing, and we've seen that this year as well. And so it is certainly an area of interest.
Thank you, Director Ishdash. I return to you for the follow-up.
Thank you, Chair. So, great points, actually, Director Morrison. Firstly, those were on my mind, and I was going to actually speak to that. My follow-up was then, what opportunities for existing events? Then, just so then, where could I direct them to look, or what's their avenue of collaborating? Because as I know, previous in years, Destination BC had a mandate that they had an expectation that regional tourism organizations were required to do cooperative programs. I know now some of that has been now formalized through the visitor center grant structure, but so then what co-op opportunities for, I'm thinking 39 Days of Summer and for the Cowichan Beer Fest, things like that. Where are the opportunities to find collaborative, cooperative grant streams then during peak season?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think, there's opportunity through Tourism Cowichan. We can provide in-kind marketing support to these types of events that are happening in the summer months. So that's something I'm happy to chat about with event organizers. But I think maybe it is a gap. And so maybe it's a conversation we can have, again, at the board level and see if there's a grace period that can be offered to these types of events to ensure that because we don't want to see these events not exist. That's not the goal. We want these events to be healthy and have a budget that enables them to continue functioning. So off the top of my head, I'm not sure where that additional grant funding source would be, but we can have that conversation.
Great. Thank you very much. I'll come back to you in a moment. Anyone else while I'm looking around? I'm going to butt in here, Director Ishdash, if that's all right. First of all, you talked about local buy-in, and I think that is most important as we look at the diversity in the Cowichan Valley, whether it's small rural communities in the West End or the wine tours or biking opportunities throughout the region, that the focus on local buy-in tourism attractions is paramount to have that influx of economic drivers of people visiting. You also spoke about the Spirit Loop, and I would encourage anyone who has not seen that video to have a look at the Spirit Loop video and see how enticing that is on the display of the video to perhaps go visit those areas. It's very good marketing, and I wanted to encourage anyone to have a look at that as we move forward and hopefully incorporate more communities within that Spirit Loop. I know we have been discussing that within our municipal council table as to how we can contribute and become involved, and I think it's going to come to fruition. So I wanted to thank you first of all on the focus of local buy-in. I think that is paramount. Director Ishdash.
Thank you for the board's generosity in allowing me to speak again. Tourism, this is something I did before being on council, was I worked across Western Canada, as I've said, doing this type of work and doing the influencer marketing and writing and doing work for executive directors and tourism staff. So that's why I'm so passionate of it, and I read these reports and why I have lots of questions on how it can benefit the region. So thank you, Chair. I got the tough question out of the way, so then next, as the Chair McGonigal did as well, I do want to say some thanks. As we recall, last year I did push for that funding for the visitor centers, and it was great to see that $50,000 is in place now. And it isn't just a handout, it's done in an innovative way that's going to hopefully, as you say, create some new ideas and maybe some digital enhancements, or really working towards the future of tourism. So thank you very much for that. And then also a nod to Chair Day on the recent article that just came out on all the cycling and mountain biking and the Fair Service Network in Lake Cowichan and how that ties in. And there was a component in there, so as I acknowledged Director Morrison saying the lack of campgrounds, because campgrounds were the basis of that article that just came up from Tourism Cowichan. So kudos to the town of Lake Cowichan and of course Chair Day on that work, and of course Tourism Cowichan to write those stories, so thank you on that. What my next question was does Tourism Cowichan have a good liaise with the Ministry of Highways? As you say, that was the big thing, is Lake Cowichan's in a way off the beaten path, and Cowichan Bay is off the Island Highway. Chemainus, like, it's literally at the bottom of the road, but everybody goes by on the Island Highway. I recall my time with the Chemainus BIA, that Ministry of Highways was adamant and uncooperative on allowing any highway signage saying it is a bypass route, even if it goes through Duncan and through the corridor and going past Chemainus. They say it's a bypass. You're allowed no signage. We will not put any signage on the highway that indicates that there's tourism opportunities off to the side. So I'm just curious if that's changed, or because Tourism Cowichan is a bigger organization than any of the local BIAs or little visitor centers, do you have a better line or leverage on them to change that, as you show it's one of your strategic priorities?
Yeah, I've actually been discussing this with Economic Development Cowichan as well, because signage is a challenge for the region as well. There's a lot of outdated signage, which impacts the visitor experience. So I have been in communication with Modi and trying to understand how we can work towards replacing those signs and upgrading them so that they're accurate, and adding additional signage as well, because it is a really important piece. It's been difficult to get a clear response back, but I continue to engage. It sounded like they were actually revamping their attraction signage program as well as the winery signage program, and so it sounded like they were reviewing that process, and we're going to provide some new updates on that. But I would love to focus on that for next year alongside Economic Development Cowichan. It's a key priority.
Great, thank you very much. If you have more, can we do that offline?
It's relevant for the board. It's from the provincial ministerial level.
Okay, I'm going to go to Director Nicholson as a first-time speaker.
Thank you. I really appreciate your presentation and focusing on benefits to locals and developing experiences here, because I think that's really important. And my area is largely agriculture, and I'm really curious about agritourism over and above the winery part of it. What is happening and what more should be happening in that front?
Yeah, I think there's lots of opportunity to increase agritourism opportunities in Cowichan. I think it's one of our biggest differentiating factors. In conversations with some of our agricultural businesses, I think one of the key challenges is the zoning bylaws around what they are able to provide on their properties. It continues to be restrictive, and I think although the official community plans highlight agritourism as a priority, the zoning bylaws don't always factor into that and create opportunity for additional experiences to be offered, such as farm stays and different events happening on site, as well as farm to table restaurants. So that's something that I hear from our agritourism stakeholders is there's lots of interest in doing more, but the zoning bylaws are prohibitive towards what can be done. So, yeah.
Follow up?
Just to follow up, we are doing our zoning
know.
bylaw right now, so your input would be greatly appreciated.
Yes.
Great, and final one, Director Ishdash, I'm sorry, but I know you're passionate about this.
Yeah.
I will give you this
Yeah,
opportunity.
thank you.
and then
Well,
we'll
it is a
move on.
regional initiative, and it's coming from the Minister of Sport, Tourism, and Recreation. I was just following up, as I didn't see it in the strategy, and I know Minister, and hopefully that's her cabinet position again, as Minister Popham, did the workshops last year in the region. And of course, a great focus of those was on the Cowichan Valley Trail and the network and developing the campgrounds and the cycling infrastructure for bike touring and bike packing. But also, one of the times I've had the chance to speak with her, she's very passionate on investing and developing VIT, which probably most people don't know on this board, that does go through Lake Cowichan, is the Vancouver Island Spine Trail, which is being developed as an international through hiking route that takes 3 months, and it goes the entire length of Vancouver Island. And it goes straight through Shawnigan, Cobble Hill, following the Cowichan Valley Trail, and then hits the Primitive Trail network once it hits Lake Cowichan. So I was just curious, was that in any of the board's discussion, or is it on the radar as it's something that the minister wants to invest in significantly within the Cowichan Valley, and especially Tourism Cowichan as a new asset?
Yeah, that particular trail I don't think was on our radar, so that's good to know. Thank you. We have been having meetings with a team from TransCanada Trail as they have some funding that they're looking to invest specifically for the Cowichan Valley Trail segment of the TransCanada Trail. So we've just started some conversations there, and we'll be kind of engaging with the Parks and Rec departments to understand what are the priorities and how can that funding be used. And these opportunities will also kind of be looked at as part of the cycling tourism strategy. But thank you for bringing that up.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you for that. And yeah, it's a hiking-only trail, and it's primitive. It has their own executive board of director, and it has its own funding structure, and they're tied into Destination BC for some funding. And their biggest hurdle is they could use TCS's and Town of Lake Cowichan's experience possibly, is a lot of the agreements with Mosaic is the hurdle right now. So
Okay.
thank you very much for that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, and I'm going to take a chance for a plug. Since you mentioned the TransCanada Trail, the town of Lake Cowichan is the westernmost terminus of that said trail. So please come and visit. How's that? I have Director McClinton online.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, very quickly, I think we've been playing email tag since your last presentation last year. I'm just very, very curious to know more about your paid search and paid social strategies. And if we could just find some time to connect offline, I'd really appreciate it. That's what I'd like to connect about. Thank you.
Sounds good. Thanks,
Thank
Josie.
you for that, Director McClinton. And with that, I would like to thank, on behalf of the board, yourself and Mr. Day for your presentation today and all your fine answers to some difficult questions. No, excellent questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
And with that, as I am rehabbing a new hip, I have been sitting for almost an hour and I must get up and stretch according Thank you very much. We now return to our regular scheduled program. Ms. Boyd, if you'll get us back on track, please.
Thank you, Chair. We have no correspondence or information items. We'll move to reports, and we've amended the agenda to have R2 go first. Report from the Economic Development Division regarding municipal regional district tax, online accommodation platform, allocation of affordable housing.
There's a recommendation there. Could you read that, please, Ms. Boyd?
Thank you, Chair. That it be recommended to the Board on November 13th, 2024, that the CVRD allocate online accommodation platform municipal regional district tax revenues to affordable housing for the remainder of the 5-year MRDT agreement period up to the repeal date of July 1st, 2027, subject to municipal support, and 2, that CVRD send letters to each municipality seeking support for the continued allocation of online accommodation platform municipal regional district tax revenues to affordable housing.
Do I have a mover for that? Moved and seconded. Discussion? I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed, if any? That motion carries, Ms. Boyd.
Thank you, Chair. We're back to R1, report from the Economic Development Division regarding municipal regional district tax 2025 tactical plan and budget and affordable housing plan.
And again, there's a couple of recommendations there.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair, that it be recommended to the Board that the municipal regional district tax tactical plan and budget for the period January 1st to December 31st, 2025 be approved. 2, that MRDT affordable housing plan for the period of January 1st to December 31st, 2025 be approved, subject to the municipal support for the use of online accommodation platform MRDT for affordable housing.
Do I have a mover? Moved and seconded. Moved and seconded. Discussion on this item. Director Morrison.
I'm just a little curious as to the process on this. Is it the normal procedure that the region has to pass a resolution like this and then it goes out to the municipalities? Because I'm thinking we could do this, and what if a municipality decided that they didn't concur? Where are we at? So I'm wondering why we wouldn't have the municipalities look at this first and come here for the final concurrence of us as a region. Looking to Ms. Boyd.
Thank you, Chair. I believe we have Barry O'Riordan online to assist us here.
Chair, have you started? Because I can't hear anything.
Okay.
All right.
We'll just pause and get the podium mic going. Apologies, Director Martman. We have done R2 and R1. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now, and so we're on to R3, are we?
Not yet. We have a question on R1 as to the municipal involvement in the letter that would be going to municipalities for the participation in the OAP, MRDT.
Through the chair, I can now hear
Please
you.
do.
So I'll be able to, if you have a question, I'd love to hear it, please, because I did not hear it.
Could you repeat the question, please, Director Morrison, now that we're...
Thank you, Chair. Mr. O'Riordan, it's a question of process. We're passing this resolution and then sending letters out for authorization or approval by our municipal partners. I'm not being a devil's advocate here, but in the event that one of our partners chose not to concur, where would we be at then? And so I'm wondering why we wouldn't begin the process by providing this to our municipal partners first and then come to us for the final concurrence. Is there a rationale as to why we do it in the order that we do it? Because it seems like it could be problematic.
Thank you. Through the chair to director. We've done it this way in terms of timing. We have here in resolution 1 that it be go ahead till 2027, subject to municipal support. So we have included that in the resolution to say that the board, committee, and ideally board is in support of that. And then that resolution that could then be sent to municipalities for their concurrence with that approach. And this is due to the province by the end of November. They give us a bit of an extension on that to get that support, but this is the right approach. We've checked with Destination BC in terms of how they'd like to see these resolutions, and they've confirmed that this is the approach they'd like to see.
Perhaps.
I'll follow up offline.
Okay. Can I turn to our CAO and ask if this topic has been broached within discussions of the CAOs within the municipalities during meetings? And I think with the municipalities being represented here, that hopefully that would go back to our boards and councils as an endorsement through our staff as well. So hopefully that can be the process and there will be no negative responses. But you never know about the West, do you? Director Staples.
I would only just add that if it came to us without the endorsement of the CVRD, we would probably ask the question in reverse. Why are we getting it without the CVRD endorsement? Because we're all represented here, so it does make sense. I feel this is the right order.
Okay. And you'll follow up offline, you say? Anything else? I'm going to call the question. All in favor? Opposed, if any? That motion carries as well. Ms. Boyd, please.
Thank you, Chair. R3, report from the Facilities and Transit Division regarding transit fare review.
And I see we have transit online as well, if we need clarification. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So this item presents the BC Transit fare review of the Cowichan Valley Transit fare products and our proposed changes to fares. It's been 6 years since changes to fares were considered, and as noted in the report, this is due primarily to the pandemic and Safe Restart funding that was received corresponding. That we have not been able to materially consider raising fares for several years. The report does come at an appropriate time as we consider next year's budget, and it highlights the need to balance the rising cost of the transit service with affordability for riders, as well as taking into consideration the consistency with fares in neighboring and other similar sized systems. Any changes approved will be implemented April 1st, 2025 in conjunction with a new rider's guide. The proposed fare changes apply to all CVRD services, including the conventional and handy dart, where CVRD sets the fare. The Nanaimo Cowichan Express service, where both the CVRD and the Regional District of Nanaimo come to agreement on fares, and they will be considering the same fare reduction recommendation at their committee meeting next week. And the commuter service, which is the Cowichan Valley and Shawnigan Lake Victoria Express services. And CVRD in this case sets the fare and advises the Victoria Regional Transit Commission for their concerns. And we're also proposing to introduce 2 new pass programs within the Cowichan Valley Transit System, and these are the ProPass, which some may be familiar with, wherein employers can sign up 5 employees or more for a discounted adult monthly pass, and the EcoPass, which is a program opportunity that would be new, and we can work with our local planning departments and the development community on to support transit. So as noted, with me online today is the author of the BC Transit Fare Review Report, Tessa Stewart, as well as our Senior Government Relations Manager from BC Transit, Seth Wright, as well as Jim Wakeham, Manager of Facilities and Transit. We're happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
I do have a speakers list. I'll look again and add you, Director Ishdash. I have Director Douglas, Morrison, Justice, and Ishdash for now.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Couple of quick questions. I'm not sure if they're for staff or for BC Transit, but one is, my understanding based on the report is that some of the recommendations are going to lead to budget implications that are not consistent with the draft CVRD budget at this time. So can we anticipate staff will be updating the budget before it comes back to us at the December Committee of the Whole meeting, or will that be a discussion item at the the upcoming budget meetings. And then the other question is with regards to the ProPass and EcoPass programs, wondering if staff or BC Transit can speak to other communities that have adopted these programs and how successful they've been.
Sure, thank you. I'm sure Jim will want to speak to the budget question because he's presenting in December on the budget.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, through the Director of Staff, I can speak to this. With regard to Function 107, which is conventional and handy DART, there's a minimal difference from what's in the budget to what is being presented here, and it's really immaterial. It's less than about a $500 difference. However, the commuter service is different. The commuter service draft budget was done prior to the fare review being completed, and there is a shortfall of about $4,700. There was a small assumed fare increase that we thought would be considered with BC Transit for the commuter, but after we went through that review, that was not the case. So I'm not sure at this time if $4,700, which is included in the report, is material enough to change the budget, but that can be discussed. I'll take a look at it between now and I think our budget presentation is December 11th. There might be some small expense savings that might be able to absorb that, or we may just consider leaving it that way, or the option would be to potentially take increased taxes or take a little bit more out of reserves for that amount. But for the most part, the Function 107 conventional and handy DART, it's immaterial with the difference in the budget versus what the estimated increase is here.
And the other question regarding the passes,
Yeah, we have Tessa on the line, and she can speak to it, as they're both programs that have been implemented in other systems.
Yes, hi there. Through the chair, happy to speak to the two programs. So ProPass is an existing employer pass program. We currently have it live in Victoria and Nanaimo, Kamloops, and Kelowna. Victoria is where we have seen a lot of success. One of the reasons we're really looking to bring it regionally is we have some regional employers that have interest in expanding the program, but only if they're able to offer it for all of their employees across multiple transit systems. Island Health is actually an existing employee in Victoria. They've seen a lot of success in the program. They actually offer a further subsidy. So they offer a 75% subsidy on top of the discount included. And they would like to bring on any employees in your transit system immediately. So we have an employer right away who's looking forward to joining. And yeah, it's been very successful. It's a lot of large employers use it, but we also see small employers use it. And they're able to offer this kind of incentive for their staff to get them using transit. On EcoPass, that is an existing program that's just in Victoria currently. We're looking similarly to expand it across all of our transit systems regionally. And we see that as a successful program that some of the different municipalities in Victoria are using to encourage their different developers to incentivize them to reduce their parking variances and include transit access. And we have seen it be quite successful. We've seen it successful in Victoria with District of Saanich and City of Victoria particularly. They're asking, different developers as they look for parking variances to include transit access. We know that the province is looking to kind of encourage transit access with different developments as well. So it's a good time to introduce this program. And it's really just a tool that's there for different municipalities to use if they would like to encourage transit access at these different developments that are being built, and get people to try transit as part of the kind of development being introduced. And then they may continue to use transit as their mode of transportation choice.
thank you for that. Moving on to Director Morrison, please.
Thank you, Chair. And I'm not sure, I think this one might be one for our friend Seth at BC Transit. And I'm approaching this from a sort of big picture environmental perspective, in that we have this transit system that we're trying to make more effective, create higher usage. We want to have more service and encourage more people to use this because of its net positive environmental impacts. And I'm sitting here thinking about the fact that when we brought the new Nanaimo service into being, that we would, because there would now be access for our two partners that aren't participants in the service, that I thought that would finally get us to the point where, as a region, we would all be fully engaged. And I'm not picking on our directors from G&H because they're not here today. I'm just making the point that It's almost impossible for the folks in the west to even take advantage of the commuter service down to Victoria because of the time it would take to, and the parking and all of the issues. Yet we still pay on a assessment basis like everybody else does, though the ability to access it is very, very remote. So I'm wondering, through to Seth, I think, is there across the province a number of jurisdictions that have participants that have access to a service, but aren't participants in the service and aren't paying for it on the tax basis? Sure, yes, each individual customer from GRH that would want to avail themselves of the service can pay the fee. But in general, do you see a lot of regional districts or operators where they have only select participants as payers to the service?
I see
through the
Jim's
chair.
hand up too, so maybe you'll have double answers.
Mr. Chair, it's Jim Wakeham calling here. I can just make a comment here. I wasn't really quite sure what Director Morrison's question had to do with fare reviews. I don't think it really is related at all, quite frankly, but I think Seth can maybe comment more, because he made a more general statement about the service itself. So Seth, if you wouldn't mind maybe answering that question.
Yeah, certainly there were a bunch of comments that I could comment on, but I think the core question I heard was about electoral areas that are not part of a transit service through the transit service bylaw. And I would say high level, just in a way of thinking about this, BC Transit has annual operating agreements which are required by the BC Transit Act with local government partners that are regional districts and municipalities across the province of BC. And regional districts have a responsibility to establish a bylaw, to establish a service. That bylaw identifies what electoral areas and municipalities are part of that service. We have transit service in areas in regional districts across the province where there are often one or two electoral areas, similar to the Cowichan Valley, that are not part of that service. And while they don't have local conventional transit service to that area, they may have access to the transit system as a whole. It does provide perhaps an inequity piece that's similar to historic recreation pieces, which we know is a problem in establishing any service at a regional district level across the province.
Great answer for a difficult question. Appreciate that. Moving along, I have Director Justice.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess it makes perfect sense to me to offer a pretty healthy discount for a 30-day pass or 30-day passes, but I have a question about the logic of the 30-day NCX Zone D 30-day pass, which seems to be an exception. The transit report indicates that the 30-day passes should be between 20 and 30 times the base rate, but the NCX Zone D is 35 times the base rate, which is outside of the parameters of the fare guidelines, and also seems like no sort of discount at all, given how many days there are in a month, or 30 days. So what's the logic there? Or is there in fact even a single day equivalent to the NCX Zone D fare? That, you know, I guess where's the logical flaw?
I can speak a little bit to the NCX, the reduction in fares broadly, and then if Tessa wants to add anything or clarify what I've said, then she certainly can jump in. But with regards to the question, the Zone D NCX pass offers transit on the interregional service, so the NCX, as well as the Cowichan Valley and the Regional District of Nanaimo system. And what we've seen in, broadly speaking, for the NCX was a general desire from riders to see reduced pricing there to make it more affordable for them. And also the NCX is a bit unique in that the majority of riders, we suspect, have to purchase or acquire some other transportation once they're in, say, for a Nanaimo example. So the express service goes Duncan, various stops in the Cowichan Valley, the airport, South Parkway Plaza, but it terminates downtown Nanaimo. And that's not perhaps the main destination for a lot of folks, so they need to purchase another transit fare product in Nanaimo to carry on their travel that day, whether that be to VIU or the Departure Bay ferry terminals or shopping malls. So the notion is that to improve the uptake of the passes, then the fare would be significantly reduced there. Tessa, did you want to add anything?
Through the chair, I would just add that it is a bit of a unique pass product because it gives access on both a regional route and multiple transit systems. So although we do have guidance around, a base fare and then 20 to 30 times for our pass products, it is something that is a little bit outside of that because it offers transit access on multiple systems. So it is priced a little bit outside of that because of that reasoning. So it's still a heavily discounted product, but you're getting access to multiple transit systems, and that's why there's a bit of a variance outside of the recommendation there.
Director Ishdash next, please.
Thank you, Chair. Definitely appreciate the questions from Director Justice and Director Morrison. A lot of minds thinking alike here. Firstly, Ms. Rondo, I want to thank you for the tour that you gave myself and Director Abbott and Director Douglas. Definitely, riding around the bus informs decisions like this to a greater degree. And then notably myself using the NCX, seeing how full it was and how well the system runs, I think it's going to be even bigger success with this new fare reduction. So I'm definitely in support of the recommendation. With that though, on fare reductions and setting fares and everything here, the one thing I saw we touched on, it's under 12 is free. When we're comparing of neighboring comparable and transit systems, are any of those ones, do any of those have the under 18? So all primary and high school and students, on any of those systems have it where all youth are free? And the reason I ask that is because I'm wondering if those regions do have it, does it impact their ridership? Because it's only this is my first full year here at the board level. I'm trying to understand why our ridership in the Cowichan Valley is fractions of what it is of municipalities or regional districts that are in some cases 35% smaller than us, but they have 30% more ridership. So it's, technically almost double for smaller communities. So that's what my question was, is, that doesn't help the cost in helping us reduce fares across the region, but I'm just curious on that dynamic between population and ridership, and also some of those regions higher ridership because more youth are in it. So just two questions that work together there.
Thank you. I'll speak to that a little bit. So the program for 12 and under, free transit for youth, that's provincial. 18 and under, I'm not sure if any system, but perhaps Seth or Tessa can speak to that. And then in regards to the ridership, I had the same question. When I observed that, I thought, we could be doing some improvements. It would be great to see higher ridership here in the Cowichan Valley, but I think that there's probably a number of factors that play into that. For example, one, we haven't been able to add service since 2018, so our ridership has recovered from the pre-pandemic level, so it's basically at pre-pandemic level, so that's a good sign. But like I said, we haven't been able to add any service since 2018, so it's perhaps kind of plateaued there, and without adding any new service or doing many improvements, it's kind of tough to attract new riders. That being said, we do have various plans in place, and the board has supported transit expansion program for the next year for sure, and then in the following 3 years. So we do have some plans there, and we're participating in different events to kind of promote transit and really just promote the system. But that's what I can surmise. Oh, and in addition to that, the Cowichan Valley really does try and accomplish a lot because we try and cover a big geographic area with our transit hours that we have. And so I look at the other areas and I wonder if they're perhaps, more condensed, smaller geographic areas serving higher density populations. So those are all my speculations in regards to the ridership, but perhaps Seth or Tessa can speak to the 18 and under free transit.
Yes, I'm happy to speak to free transit in general for 18 and under. There are a couple programs that we do have around the province. The City of Victoria has a program that are just for City of Victoria youth, so not across all of the transit system, but just those that reside within the City of Victoria proper. They do see a lot of uptake on that program and a lot of success. It's obviously a high transit area, so easy for transit access. They see a lot of success with that program. We do have other programs around the province. It's been difficult to really effectively gauge the success of the programs without a fare product being utilized, as youth don't need to show anything when they ride and get on the bus. So it's really just trying to decide if there's an increase in ridership. And it's difficult to measure that, but we do try and measure that, I believe, in all of these systems. So Penticton has a free transit program. There is also one that's in Squamish, I believe. Sorry, I'm trying to think of all the ones that are currently there. I don't know if Seth, you can think of any of the other ones, but Penticton, a lot of them have separate funding. We also have one in Kitimat as well that is for free transit, and they see success with that program as well. Like I said, though, it has been difficult to gauge ridership. We're looking to use the new UMO technology that we have available to us in a lot of these different transit systems now that it's available, and start tracking ridership through these programs, 18 to 12-year-olds, kind of the usage, and then be able to say how that might impact ridership more accurately.
Great. Appreciate that. I have Director Nicholson, Director Abbott online, and Director Segal.
Thank you. Yeah, I was very interested in whether other well, first of all, am I correct that about 2.5% of your costs for transit are come from fares?
Not sure.
So it's fares contribute a small amount.
Yes,
Okay.
that's correct.
So I'm just wondering if there's if we can be thinking about this differently. I don't like to see things going up. I would rather see them come down. And I'm wondering that we've talked now about youth programs around the province, but the difficulty in monitoring and understanding what kind of an impact. If we could get over that and maybe try some really innovative things would be helpful here in the Cowichan, because I've been here 10 years now and there's been not much change on transit in those 10 years. And if we want to take it seriously, we should be really pushing a little bit harder, I think. And I'm talking not about the commuter stuff, but about the local transit. So is there a way that we could maybe think about doing a program next year, like put in place some things that we could maybe try? Even this youth under 18 free would be a helpful thing to understand.
Oh, Jim has his hand up here, so.
Yeah, thank you, Rochelle. Just can answer the first comment to Director Nicholson, just regarding fares, when you said the fares represent about 2% of the funding. Not quite that low. So just looking at the 2025 draft budget, 26% of the fares cover or coverage of the costs. It's about 20% for Function 107, which is conventional. So yes, it's low, but it's quite a bit more than 2%. Rochelle, see if you can answer the second part of Director Nicholson's question.
Yeah, thank you. So in terms of the second part of the question was kind of what can we do perhaps instead of raising the fares for transit to improve the revenue, or alternatively increase the ridership to substantially make up that difference? Is that sort of where you're leaning to, Director Nicholson?
Yeah, I'm just thinking whether we should try something drastic to try and increase ridership and use, because it is really important.
In youth particularly? Yeah, okay. Thank you. I have Seth online. I think he would like to answer that.
Yeah, if I could, through the chair, I just wanted to touch on something Jim addressed, which is the the rate of cost recovery through the fare box. We have a table in Figure 4 in the report by Tessa Stewart. That's attachment A to this agenda item that identifies that the cost recovery percentage of the fare ranges from 15 to 20%, and it's around 15% right now. Before the pandemic, it was closer to 20%. That number is looking at it from a BC Transit lens, which is a slightly different financial lens than the CVRD lens, which is Jim spoke to. So I just wanted to provide that clarification. If you want to look at the costs, the total operating expenses in that table are representative of both the provincial share and the local government share. So they're cutting the pie slightly differently. Additionally, in terms of the piece on growing ridership, when we look at how do we grow ridership, fares impact ridership in an incremental way. What really impacts ridership is service levels and frequency. We know this in every system and across the province. In Cowichan, this is especially difficult because we're serving an enormous rural area that's difficult to service with high frequency. But ultimately, when we survey our riders and when we look at academic literature about transit ridership, fares play a very minor role in influencing ridership. Greenhouse gas emissions and climate change considerations also play a moderate role. Values, community ideas, but really it's about density, land use, built form, and service frequency to provide a bit of a context on that question.
Something to add, Mr. Wakeham?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, just a clarification here, and I know this might be difficult for some of the members. So when Seth talks about cost recovery, he's right. He's talking about the operating costs from the BC Transit contract, if you will, and the ridership divided into that. When we look at the CVRD budgets, the CVRD has additional costs to running the transit service on top of our BC Transit costs. We have wages of our staff, we have all the bus stop maintenance and shelter maintenance, we have commissions to pay, and we have CVRD allocations internally. So there are a number of other costs, but two things. One is, so just two numbers I'll give you. The commuter service, this is the draft 2025 budget. Our net fare, because we share the fares with the Victoria Regional Transit Commission, is about $196,000, and our total budgeted costs right now are $747,000. So that's how I got the 26%. I did make an error when I said that it would be around 20% for conventional. That's not correct. It's closer to 15, and that is because the budget 2025 has fares coming in around $714,000 versus a total cost of about $4.66 million. So that is about a 15% recovery or reduction of the taxes, if you will, based on fare collection. So I just wanted to clarify that.
Ma'am.
Thank you. And just something to add to Director Nicholson's comment or question. I certainly would hesitate to say no to introducing any new programs, and I can't say no to that, but also we work with BC Transit closely, and their philosophy has been to try and implement programs and kind of consistently throughout the province, as well as simplify the fare product offerings so that we don't have multiple different layers of transit fare products. That being said, we do have Seth and Tessa, and we can take the feedback in regards to what kind of initiatives can BC Transit perhaps look at from a fare perspective or increasing ridership perspective as it relates to the fares. But yeah, I can't really speak to what we could do at this moment as it involves, their expertise and feedback as well.
Thank you for that. I have Director Abbott online next.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Ms. Rondeau, for a superb report, and as Director Estache said, an actual tour with Rob Douglas of the NSX tour. My question, and it may be answered better by Mr. Wakeman or Mr. Wright, is it heresy? Your report talks about the CBX, SBX being the highest in the province. Is it heresy to ask, is it likely or possible to reduce the fare for that very viable commuter service? I did hear something about a $4,700 shortfall, but the numbers I've probably gotten wrong. But thank you.
Rochelle, would you like to comment on, I think the question is really, why have we not considered reducing the CVX? I think that's really his question. We as staff internally discussed this. Do you want to answer that, Rochelle, or I can do that as well?
Yeah, sure, I can speak to that. So with regards to the Cowichan Valley Express service and the Shawnigan Lake Victoria, so this is a different service altogether, and it services a different demographic. The service was initially set up to provide a commuting option for like government workers, office workers, and reducing the congestion on the Malahat at peak times. We are seeing a little bit of change over time in that we have introduced more of a midday trip to provide new travel options for kind of non-6 a.m. riders. But that being said, because this service, the way it's set up, it is very expensive to operate, and we haven't, believe it or not, we haven't received a lot of feedback in regards to reducing that fare. What we do receive the most feedback on in general terms is improving service and servicing more areas and just improving frequency. The other difference with the CVX versus the NCX, and a lot of riders, it may be more complicated, as things always are. They're more complicated than they seem. But with the Cowichan Valley Express to Victoria, it's really sort of the Duncan South to Victoria, and you can kind of get to your main destinations on one fare, and you're not stopping in different communities. Whereas on the NCX, the appeal in reducing the fare there also comes from the fact that you're stopping in the Nanaimo Cowichan Express, different communities. So a fare from like Ladysmith to Duncan or Ladysmith to the airport at $7.50 does seem quite a bit higher for folks for those shorter trips, acknowledging though that, you know, the service was meant from kind of the Cowichan Valley, Nanaimo. So it's a bit different in the Victoria system in that it's set up differently and just quite expensive to operate. And our partners, Victoria Regional Transit Commission, they didn't review the CVX as part of their fare review process, and there wasn't any real appetite to consider reducing the fare.
Thank you for that. I have Director Segal next.
Thank you. My question is about the UPass. So I went to UBC the year the UPass was introduced for that university, and it was the best. And I didn't realize that it wasn't available for other university students. So I noticed it's in the report, and that BC Transit is happy to support the exploration. Just wondering if there's a plan to look at UPass for students on the island.
Thank you. Yeah, we'd like to see VIU be encouraged to adopt a UPass product, but this is dependent on them seeing it as a priority for their kind of student body. And as of yet, we understand that that's not been really put forth as a priority, and they're not really pursuing it. We are certainly open to having those conversations, particularly as it relates to the Nanaimo Cowichan Express. But yeah, that's something on our minds, but we understand it's not been really pursued or taken up by VIU at this time.
Looking online, I see your hand up. Mr. Wakeham, did you have something to add?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was actually just going to provide another comment back to Director Abbott's question around were we considering reducing the CVX service? And as Rochelle had indicated, there's a number of reasons why that service is so expensive, and we have not had any complaints really about the costs operating it. But also remember two things here, and this is going to lead into the budget discussion in a couple of weeks here, is that staff are very cognizant of the pressures of taxes, and so we try to balance taxes and user fees and comparisons with other regions. And so just hypothetically, you know, if we were to reduce the NCX fare by a 33%, I'll just say similar to what happened in we're proposing for the NCX, that would add about 17% on the tax on the commuter function alone. And I will give you a heads up that the the budget discussions coming in a couple weeks, there's going to be significant increases in both transit functions, the commuter as well as the conventional. There's a number of reasons for that. There's grant funding that's gone away. We've used substantial amounts of operating reserves. And what I'll point out in a couple weeks also is we've had a number of years of no tax increases. And so now it's catch-up time. So we really felt that the $10 is a max amount already, and we weren't going to push it any further. But we also are cognizant that we didn't want to reduce it because we're trying to do a bit of a balancing act here between tax requisition amounts as well as user fees.
Thank you for the
very
question,
much.
Mr. Wickman.
Did you have a follow-up, Director Abbott, or you're good there?
I just wanted to thank Mr. Wakeman for the timely clarity on budget constraint. Appreciate it.
Perfect. Thanks for the heads up, and I think we will have the motion read, if you don't mind, Ms. Boyd.
Thank you, Chair. That it be recommended to the board that transit fares outlined in Table 1.0 of the staff report of the Committee of the Whole on November 13th, 2024, be approved for implementation effective April 1st, 2025. 2, ProPass and EcoPass fare discount programs be authorized for conventional transit. And 3, BC Transit and the Regional District of Nanaimo be advised that the CVRD concurs with the proposed reduction of fares to the Nanaimo Cowichan Express Route 70 as outlined in Table 1.0 of the staff report to the Committee Whole on November 13th, 2024.
Moved and seconded. Call the question. All in favor? Opposed, if any? That motion carries. Thank you very much to those who have participated online. We appreciate your input today. Thank you very much. Ms. Boyd.
Thank you, Chair. We have no unfinished business, no new business, and I'm not seeing anyone in the gallery for question period. If we could please move to a closed session, motion that the meeting be closed to the public in accordance with the Community Charter, Part 4, Division 3, Section 90, subsections as noted in accordance with each agenda item. CSM 1, closed session minutes of October 9th, 2024. CSR 1, negotiations, Section 91K.
Moved by Director Nicholson, seconded by a whole bunch of people. We will go to the closed invite, please, for those who are online. We'll get out of this one.